Let's begin with President Trump's stunning and baseless claim that President Obama tapped his phones. Our senior White House correspondent Jeff Zeleny is joining us first. Jeff, the president is keeping a low profile since that Twitter barrage.
Wolf, it's a very low profile indeed, particularly compared to the explosive and extraordinary comments he made over the weekend. Now, a White House spokesman tells me tonight the president does not regret sending out those messages. But Wolf, many Republicans in this town do. President Trump out of sight today at the White House as a firestorm raged over his unfounded accusation that President Obama wiretapped his phones last year. It's the first weekday since taking office Mr. Trump did not appear before the cameras, leaving his aides to try defending the president's extraordinary weekend attack.
Look, the president firmly believes that the Obama administration may have tapped into the phones at Trump Tower.
And is that based on media reports?
This is something that we should look into. We'd like to know for sure.
But neither the deputy White House press secretary nor any advisor provided evidence to back up the president's explosive claim, except to suggest Mr. Trump has access to more information than they do.
He's the president of the United States. He has information and intelligence that the rest of us do not. And that's the way it should be for presidents.
The latest presidential eruption started Saturday morning from Florida when the president tweeted this. Terrible. Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. His tweets didn't stop there, attacking President Obama again. This is Nixon Watergate, bad or sick guy. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, who held his daily briefing off camera today, defended the president, but also declined to offer any evidence.
I think that there's no question that something happened. The question is it surveillance? Is it a wiretap or whatever? But there's been enough reporting that strongly suggests that something occurred.
The allegation shook Washington and raised the stakes even higher for the Russia investigation on Capitol Hill. A new CNN ORC poll found nearly 2/3 of Americans say a special prosecutor should investigate Russia allegations, a number that includes most Democrats, many independents, and even 43% of all Republicans. James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence, was among the federal officials who said no wiretapping took place at Trump Tower.
For the part of the national security apparatus that I oversaw as DNI, there was no such wiretap activity mounted against the president-elect at the time, or as a candidate, or against his campaign.
The allegations appear to stem from a story on the conservative site Breitbart News, CNN has learned, which the president read late last week. That story is a synopsis of allegations made by talk radio host Mark Levine, who has been pushing without evidence the same conspiracy theory now embraced by the president.
This is not about President Trump's tweeting. This is about the Obama administration's spying. And the question isn't whether it's spied. We know they went to the FISA court twice. The question is, who did they spy on? The extent of the spying.
The White House called for a congressional inquiry into whether President Obama abused the power of federal law enforcement before the 2016 election. A spokesman for the former president said the allegations were simply false. Republican Senator Marco Rubio, who appeared in Florida with the president on Friday, seemed dumbfounded by the allegations on CNN's State of the Union.
So obviously, I'm not sure what it is he is talking about. Perhaps the president has information that is not yet available to us or to the public. And if it's true, obviously, we're going to find out very quickly. And if it isn't, then obviously he'll have to explain what he meant by it.
Now, Senator Rubio is one of the Republicans on the Intelligence Committee, so he will be among those investigating this. Now, the White House demanded this inquiry, but it's unclear if the president will accept the findings. We asked White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer about that earlier today when he talked to reporters, and he said this: if we have a problem with its conclusions, we'll let it be known. Wolf.
All right, Jeff, thank you. Jeff Zeleny over at the White House. Now to the president's latest attempt at a travel ban. Unlike the dramatic rollout of the first version, this executive order was signed quietly out of the media spotlight. The Secretary of Homeland Security, John Kelly, is here with us in the Situation Room. We'll talk in a moment. But first, let's go to our senior diplomatic correspondent, Michelle Kaczynski, over at the State Department. Michelle, how is this different from the first ban that was blocked by the federal courts?
Hi, Wolf. Well, the White House has removed the most controversial, confusing parts of the original travel ban. The most glaring one is that this doesn't involve 7 countries anymore. It involves 6. Iraq is now off the list. So what suddenly happened between then and now? The Trump administration is saying that Iraq is now working with the U.S. to implement better security measures, although sources tell CNN nothing has changed procedurally, although there is better communication over what Iraq has already been doing on the security front. Also, this new travel ban makes it clear that if you have a visa, if you have a green card, you are okay to travel to the U.S. There are also certain exceptions that U.S. officials can make. So that really spells that out. And on the refugee front, Syrian refugees are no longer indefinitely banned, and gone is the language that seemed to give preferential treatment to Christians. You know, it's interesting, too, when you hear from the administration, this time they're trying to back up the executive order with some data, saying that there are now 300 refugees who are currently in the U.S. who are under investigation by the FBI for potential terrorist activity. But U.S. officials are refusing to say what countries any of those refugees are from, and even whether a single one of them comes from one of these countries in question. Here's the Attorney General.
Like every nation, the United States has a right to control who enters our country and to keep out those who would do us harm. This executive order seeks to protect the American people as well as lawful immigrants by putting in place an enhanced screening and vetting process for visitors from 6 countries.
Yeah, this was such a different rollout, too. The first executive order, remember, it was in the Pentagon's Hall of Heroes. It was President Trump in this big ceremony with the Secretary of Defense right next to him. Well, this time, the White House had him sign this in private. They just put out a photo of him doing that. And the big question the last time around is, well, you look at the agencies who were supposed to interpret and implement the executive order, where were they? The Department of Homeland Security and the State Department were confused themselves over how to implement this. Well, this was today the White House almost saying, you know, here's everybody. You had the Attorney General, Homeland Security, and the State Department all presenting this to the American public, Wolf.
Michelle Kaczynski over at the State Department, thanks very much. Joining us now, the Homeland Security Secretary, retired General John Kelly. General, Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for your military service as well. Let's get right to some of the specific issues. The FBI reported 300 refugees admitted to the United States are currently under investigation for potential terrorist activity. How many of those 300 are from those 6 Muslim-majority countries on this list?
Well, you've heard this before, Wolf. I mean, things that are under investigation, particularly the FBI at the level at which they investigate, not a lot is shared until those investigations are complete and then passed down to the relevant agency to deal with. So I don't know how many are from those 6.
Is this new intelligence that you've gotten since 6 weeks ago when you originally released your initial ban?
A number of weeks ago, this was intelligence that was law enforcement classified. Now it's not.
Are most of these 300 from these 6 countries? Can you give us a ballpark figure?
No details on the investigations other than that there's roughly 300 under investigation.
From all over the world?
I suspect from all over the world.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your Department of Homeland Security just came out with its own intelligence assessment that finds most of the foreign-born violent extremists here in the United States have been radicalized after entering the United States. This is the Department of Homeland Security intelligence assessment, declassified, made public. Does that undercut the need for this travel ban?
If you're referring to the one that was leaked, to the report that was leaked, we were actually waiting for, and this was a pre-decisional draft report. We were waiting for the FBI to provide information as to numbers, which they have. So I think the report that you're referring to was pre-decisional draft. In the open press, we found that there was no way we could tell the numbers of individuals from those 7 countries.
But in general, have most of the violent extremists who are being watched right now, have they been radicalized here in the United States, or did they come here from whatever country with a plot to kill Americans?
That's what's under investigation, a part of it. The 300 are refugees, not self-proclaimed radicals from inside the United States. 300 are refugees who came here from another land. I would think the investigation will go after one of the parts of the investigation will be, were they radicalized when they came, or were they radicalized after?
But don't you think you needed that intelligence before you released this new travel ban that affects these 6 Muslim majority
remember
countries?
Remember the travel, you refer to it, many refer to it as a travel ban. We've always looked at it as a pause from those 7 nations, now 6, until we can get our arms around exactly how good we can vet individuals from those countries. And the fact of the matter is, with the exception of Iraq, generally speaking, we don't have embassies in those countries. 3 of the 6 now are designated as terrorist supporters, by the State Department. Most of them are countries in collapse, and we can't rely on the information.
But here's the concern.
Let me finish if I could. We can't rely on those governments providing us any useful information to vet.
Here's the concern that a travel ban like this, involving these 6 Muslim majority countries, will be fodder for ISIS, Al-Qaeda to recruit new terrorists.
Just to remind, the 7 now 6 were the exact same countries that the United States Congress was concerned with and put on their list. The Obama administration put on their list. It was an obvious place to start. I don't take the point that the Islamic extremists are prompted to do more extremism because of these kind of things. I mean, it flies in the face of why Khobar Towers, why the Marine bombing or the barracks bombing, why 9/11. I mean, they seem pretty angry at us leading up to this. So I don't buy the issue that
because, as you know, they're calling it a Muslim ban.
But it's not a Muslim ban.
But these countries are all Muslim countries.
There are 1.7 billion Muslims on the planet. There are something on the order of 51 overwhelmingly Muslim countries. We had 7, now 6, to the tune of maybe a couple of 100 million predominantly Muslims that were put on the list. And it's a pause as we look at ways that we can better vet these countries. And these countries represent 6 or 7 that we knew about. We're now looking at other countries, and when we come up with additional vetting to protect the nation better than it's been protected, there will probably be other countries we will look at and say, okay, we want you to improve.
So you think they're going to expand that list?
I don't believe that the list will be expanded, but there are countries out there that we will ask, like Iraq has done, by the involvement of their prime minister, to cooperate with us better to get us the information we need to safeguard the country.
So what other countries might be added to that?
Well, there's a number of them out there. I don't want to speculate, but there's probably 13 or 14 other countries, not all of them Muslim countries, not all of them in the Middle East, that have very questionable vetting procedures that we can rely on. And then if we overlay additional vetting procedures, the chances are those countries, there will be minimum citizens from those countries that visit our country.
President Trump, at a news conference, said that you personally had told him the original travel ban had to be enacted immediately. That was his word, because of security. It's now been delayed, for 6 weeks or so. Doesn't that undermine the emergency component of this? Because now it's going to be delayed.
Right. Clearly, the courts have decided that they are in a position to understand the threat against the United States better than people like me or the intelligence agencies. So at this point in time, with a 30-day delay, generally speaking, because of the court action, we wanted to roll this out in a way that we did not have the opportunity to do the first time around.
Let me get to some other sensitive Homeland Security issues while I have you. Are you, the Department of Homeland Security, considering a new initiative that would separate children from their parents if they try to enter the United States illegally?
Let me start by saying I would do almost anything to deter the people from Central America to getting on this very, very dangerous network that brings them up through Mexico into the United States. And I would underline that the Mexicans are after this network in the same way we are. It's extremely dangerous. I wouldn't say 100%, but certainly in the high 90%, and this is by the social service organizations that inform me from Central America that the vast majority of the young women, all women, are sexually abused along this trip. But my point is...
Let me just be precise.
Right.
If you get some young kids who are coming in, manage to sneak into the United States with their parents, are Department of Homeland Security personnel going to separate the children from their moms and dads?
We have tremendous experience in dealing with unaccompanied minors. We turn them over to HHS, and they do a very, very good job of either putting them in kind of foster care or linking them up with parents or family members in the United States. Yes, I am considering, in order to deter more movement along this terribly dangerous network, I am considering exactly that. They will be well cared for as we deal with their parents.
But you understand how that looks to the average person who is,
It's more important to me, Wolf, to try to keep people off of this awful network.
Let's, hovering over our discussion right now is the big headline of the day, this amazing charge from the President of the United States that President Obama personally ordered a surveillance of Trump Tower in New York during the campaign. Now, you're privy to sensitive information. Are you familiar with that? Do you believe that? You've worked with both of these presidents.
I don't know anything about it other than when I was sitting in the off studio here watching CNN. If the President of the United States said that, he's got his reasons to say it. He's got some convincing evidence that took place.
What possibly could that convincing evidence be?
I don't pretend to even guess as to what the motivation may have been for the previous administration to do something like that.
You work closely with the FBI Director James Comey, and
he's my friend.
He's your friend. You have confidence in him.
I do have confidence.
According to a source very close, he's incredulous how President Trump could make this accusation against President Obama.
With due respect to sources, I have been wronged so many times in the last 6-7 weeks as the Secretary of Homeland Security by sources that were dead wrong. I'm not suggesting in this case, but that were dead wrong. I don't go much on single sources anymore.
If he went public, and we're out of time, if Comey went public and said this never happened, as Clapper did, the former Director of National Intelligence, would you believe Comey?
I would expect Jim Comey to then turn that over to some investigative arm, and we could get to the truth, or to the bottom line. Again, Jim Comey is an honorable guy. So is the President of the United States, and the President must have his reasons.
The Secretary of Homeland Security, General Kelly, thanks very much for joining us. You got a tough job. Good luck.
It's a great job.
We'll stay in close touch. Don't leave yet. Just ahead, more on the breaking news. A source says the FBI Director James Comey was left incredulous by President Trump's unfounded claim that the former President Barack Obama ordered a wiretap of his phones.